A progressive woman once told me that if she was my wife, she'd poison my coffee. I told her if I was her husband, I'd drink it. This is Alan Bordius, host of Their Finest Hour, Monday nights here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
At Independent Journal Review, we publish news that is objective, fair, and entertaining. As one of the top websites in the United States, it's our duty to bring the absolute best to our readers. Readers like you. IJReview.com, your number one source for news and entertainment.
Hi, this is Missy Bordius. Join me as I share my womanly bits on the Conservative Feminist Show, 11 p.m. on Fridays, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
Coming soon to Vigilant Liberty Radio. The Edge of Anarchy. Mondays on VLR. This is Chuck Dixon, the co-creator of Bane, and you're listening to Vigilant Liberty Radio.
At Independent Journal Review, we publish news that is objective, fair, and entertaining. As one of the top websites in the United States, it's our duty to bring the absolute best to our readers. Readers like you. IJReview.com, your number one source for news and entertainment.
Welcome back to the show. You are listening to The Right Mics with Michael Hausum. This is one of the funnest things that we do.
You also listen to The Right Mics with Mike Miller as well, don't you?
Oh, dang it, you're back.
You bastard. I knew you'd try to slip something.
Dude, as soon as you said you were going to get off the line for a second, I'm like, okay, Miller's going to hear this and it's going to be awesome.
And he's going, damn, I hope I get this in before that son of a bitch comes back.
Well, no, if you didn't hear it, then who cares?
Well, then you knew I would hear it later on the podcast and call you in the middle of the night.
Okay, that would have been so awesome. Saturday afternoon, I'm tooling around town and all of a sudden I get this irate text message. Oh, that's so awesome, man. See, I didn't even have the guts to listen to the two segments earlier in the week when I wasn't on. I just couldn't even imagine the kind of crap you were throwing into the radio.
You know what? I didn't, Jessica, did I? But I do really need to next time, because that is my nature anyway.
Well, good Lord, Mike, if you didn't, I'm disappointed. Hey, folks, I just got to let you know this is obviously going to be an amazing half hour because my co-host is nowhere to be found.
It's all about me.
Finally can do the radio show I've wanted.
Man, dude. Hey, you got a couple nice articles up.
Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about Obama proposing another law. By the way, this would have to be approved by Congress. This is not something he can wield the empirical pen and make happen as it relates to, again, this free college thing. But you have this article up that, this is right in both of our wheelhouses because it's stuff we love, but the title being, instead of making more laws, here are a few ideas the new Congress should get to work on.
Oh, yeah. I thought this was fantastic. It's a writer in Forbes. And I forget how I found it. I think somebody sent it to me. And the guy's like, look, and the premise is genius. Is, he goes through all the number of new laws that have been written, and there's the whole do nothing Congress and, all of this kind of thing. And the idea being, even though it was a do nothing Congress, there were still like 130 some laws that were passed. So this guy's saying, look, why don't we go through and undo some of the crap that is dragging us down, some of the detritus of stupid thinking historically that could perhaps unleash and spend time focusing on sweeping up the back rooms of the house as opposed to constructing a new edifice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's perfect tenant.
Thank you so much. So these are the 5 that he came through, and why don't we go back? You and I, we can share and read what they are, because I think his suggestions are genius, and I would guess that you and I have the exact same instinct as to what we think will happen. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the first one he's suggesting is the Davis-Bacon Act. Now, this is an ancient act. It's almost 100 years old. It's a wage-fixing scheme originally intended to protect white workers against lower-waged black workers. I don't know if people were aware of that a lot of this union stuff was to keep the labor force white out of fear that blacks would be willing to do work for lower amounts. And basically what ends up happening is that all federal projects, they're required, all of the wages that are paid on any federal projects use prevailing wage tables, which is basically a union shill. That they're basically overpaying. They're overpaying for labor. So this guy's suggesting that should be jettisoned. All right, Mike, you take the next one.
Well, let's talk about that just a second, because I think that, I was not aware of its intent. I am aware of the whole prevailing wage thing and the scam and the unions and so forth. But this idea that it was originally intended to protect white workers from lower wage black workers, I'm interested in some of the original text. In other words, how did it get around just not saying that straight out?
They don't say that at all. But if you go back and read, gosh, I remember doing this in college about the Davis-Bacon Act. You go back and see the type of things that were said. The whole point of it was, and it wasn't just blacks, although it was primarily blacks, but also Asians and the Irish were also mentioned, that these are people that are willing to do work for less than good Americans will. I mean, that kind of stuff, that was said in the floor of Congress when it was passed.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, it is embarrassing that law, frankly, ever made it on the books, but even more so that it exists today.
I know, exactly, especially the latter. Listen, let's don't digress all the way back to then, but it's always puzzled me in terms of why the Irish were looked down upon, and you have to talk about that sometime when we're doing kind of a history channel type thing. Okay, number 2. The Higher Education Act. Since this passed in 1965, the federal government has become intimately involved in all areas of college education, despite no constitutional authority for it. Amen. This now includes complete control over a student loan program for which the public has ultimately guaranteed billions of dollars in debt. And if Barack Obama has his way, I editorialize, as we just talked in the last segment, he wants to add a whole bunch more to it. So what the hell, Howsam, business does the federal government have in basically running education in this country?
Okay, if by education in this country you mean anything, then yeah, let's move on. The next one, Labor Relations Act. This is another pro-union act, which have primarily been benefited from it. And it was put into law in 1935. Without going into the details, just know that there's not a single labor leader in the country that wouldn't give their lives to make sure that the Labor Relations Act is still in force. You're up next.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, number 4 is civil asset forfeiture. Federal government is oftentimes able to take property from individuals as part of investigation into possible legal wrongdoing. Even when found this is the interesting part, even when found innocent or never even facing criminal charges, individuals can face significant legal and financial hurdles in order to reclaim their property. How crappy is that?
Oh man, some of the stories behind some of these things that have happened for civil asset forfeiture. I mean, if you're just involved in an investigation or suspected in an investigation, Mike, they can take shit from you. And the process that you have to go to get it back, even if you're ultimately never even indicted or any charges brought against you at all, if there's no case brought at all and you were just a sideshow in the case, those assets, the process to go back and get them can be hundreds of thousands of dollars and years in the making.
Dude, I could see that in Denmark, maybe, but not.
Right. Okay. Then the last one. Oh, no, excuse me. Not the last one. Number 5, occupational licensing. I'm sure that there's probably some sort of licensing requirement that I'm out of compliance, that I'm broadcasting a radio show from a black chair in Southern California facing slightly southeastern at my desk. I'm sure there are compliance and licensing issues. This is what this is talking about. It's always a consumer protection. Well, you don't want doctors practicing medicine without a license. You don't want people rolling hair into curls without a license. You don't want people whitening your teeth without a license, but it's almost always just a protectionist or just a red tape process. That's another thing.
All right, I need to speak to this one just a bit because I know just a tad about this. Okay, as I'm just going to list these these titles or jobs or whatever that I had in the financial services industry all at the same time. By the way, because of what we're talking about here. As a stockbroker, as a certified financial planner, that's something you have to get licensed for. As a registered principal, as a managing principal, all of that stuff, Howsam, you wouldn't have believed how much licensing and fees and continuing education and company-sponsored, videos and quizzes and meetings and whatever have you, that we all had to go through. And the bottom line there, it's not in my mind, it's reality. The companies did this, the broker-dealers did this, and do it as we speak. It gets worse all the time to protect their own asses. Because, if somebody does something and they can say, look, we made them get this license and do this continuing education and get this certification and blah, blah, blah. It's not on us, it's on them. Dude, it was a nightmare.
Oh, I'm sure. My dad sold insurance for a while, and the steps that he had to go through for that. And at the end of it, he's like, you know what? This is just all a bunch of red tape boondoggle.
Oh yeah, just even on that level, just on the insurance level. But
yeah, it's purely a barrier to entry enforced by those. Oh gosh, man, I remember. It was, I forget where it was. I think it was a John Stossel show that I was watching a few months ago. And this guy had started this moving company where he had, I think it was ex-military guys doing the moving. And he was expanding. It's in the South, and the guy was growing like absolute gangbusters. And there was a couple of cities that sued him, and so Stossel went in and interviewed the guy that was the head of the, Greater Greensboro Moving Association or whatever, and he was on the licensing board. And the guy's like, well, you know what? This is not fair to consumers. These guys are coming in here. We have absolutely no idea who they are. We have no idea if there's consumer protection. We have no idea if the marketplace can even support an additional moving company. And if the marketplace can't support an additional moving company, that threatens the existing moving companies, and ultimately that can affect the customers. Stossel leans forward and said, aren't you just trying to keep the competition out? And the guy was like, well, not at all. And the answer was, totally.
Just one more quick point about this. After 9/11, okay, I was in the business then.